Election Overview.
So Namibians go to the polls on 27 November 2024, which is this year. I'm joined by Tapiwa Mangwiro. He's a journalist from the Zim Papers Group Zimbabwe. And I'm also joined by Victor Baatweng, and he's from the Sunday Standard newspaper. Welcome, gentlemen. I just wanted to speak to you guys a bit about, how do perceptions of regional stability and security impact voter turnout and trust in the election process? Tapiwa, maybe we can start with you.
Okay. Coming from an experience of Zimbabwe, the security of voters affects voter turnout very much. Also, the trust that is put in the electoral commission, it speaks volume to the turnout of voters. If you see, it's usually the youths that are always on voter apathy issues, and because they think that because the electoral commission is not trustworthy, the environment is not fair enough, they think that they are wasting their own time on elections. But the older generation, they have a reason. They say that they have a reason. They say they have got belief in the electoral system because they've seen it work before. So in terms of who goes to vote and who doesn't, it's always the elderly that vote, and the youth are usually not interested in voting so much.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Victor, what's your perspective on this?
Yes, thank you, Steve. I think this is a good topic. I'm saying good because, as you mentioned earlier on, Botswana is also going to the polls on Wednesday. And what we actually saw happening this past weekend was that we had what we call the advanced voting, which is where the people from the election management body is called the IEC were the one who were voting together with the police. So there were a few incidents where the opposition parties were actually not happy about how the elections were administered. And that spoke to the confidence in the IEC. So it's something that one is going to watch, because it's something that we have actually been watching in the SADC region, particularly from Tapiwa's country in Zimbabwe, where there is a lot of issues to do with the election management body there. And we see that also now replicating into the region. So we would want to see what's going to happen in Namibia. In fact, we would have an idea in Botswana, and then by end of November, we'd get to see what happens in Namibia and whether there's a similar pattern. Also, remember that in South Africa, there's now a government of national unity. It's also one of the areas that we actually going to see if that has an influence on the region.
Yeah. Namibia's always had peaceful elections, and we anticipate it to be like that again. But, anything can happen. Tapiwa, your thoughts?
My perspective on Namibia, I think it's just the same as Mozambique, where in terms of the parliamentary votes, the ruling party who get a majority, most probably, but it comes down to the presidential votes. That is where the issue is, even if you look at Mozambique as a case study. So you see, the people that are voting now, they're different, their perspectives are different from what was there 20 years back. And these ruling parties are starting to feel it, because yes, Namibia has generally been peaceful, has generally been quiet in terms of its elections. But if you notice, the noise has grown louder in this particular election. The region has taken note of these elections like never before. Because before, people would vote in Namibia and it was just like it's an election. But now there is interest in the region. Your neighbors are looking at it. The region as a whole, in terms of in Africa, on an African perspective, they're also looking at Namibian elections, just because of the tight race that is there between the presidential candidates. So it's going to be a tough situation, and it's going to be a delicate one. that needs to be handled pretty safely, so that the opposition should also not feel like it's being marginalized, because already, like in Botswana, we see that the opposition was saying that the party disbursements are being slow, and so these are the tricks that are happening in an election, coming from an experience of a Zimbabwean perspective. So if you start to see such irregularities, then eyebrows will be raised, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And we even had the opposition party protesting the other day. So, you know, they already says, you know, that has never happened.
Yeah. I see that they've also been complaining about the ballot papers as well, the procurement of the ballot papers. So it's starting to make noise. The opposition parties are starting to make a ground in terms of the voters. So it destabilizes the ruling party. It's natural, but it's how they manage the challenge that is of importance.
Yeah, yeah. Then Victor, looking at Namibia, we've always been peaceful. You know, no noise, and like Tapiwa just said, you know, they're looking. So, what are your thoughts?
I think Namibia and Botswana are actually the region, the two countries in the region which have been holding the so-called peaceful elections. But what has been coming out over the years is also been the reports that have been compiled by SADC and other observing missions, particularly to do with the fairness part of the election. For instance, in Botswana, there was a recommendation that to avoid issue of finger pointing, the ballot papers or the ballots should be counted at the polling stations as compared to being transferred. And it's one of those that have always caused trouble, and it's one of those that appears is going to cause trouble this year. I don't know what's the practice in Namibia in terms of voting and counting, but it's just one of those that as years pass by, you get to realize that people get agitated by that process. There are certain changes that they want, but the ruling party has always insisted on keeping the current system possibly because it works for them. And I'm quite sure that even in Namibia, there's a system that is actually working for SWAPO or the ruling party there that possibly the opposition is not happy about. And those things, depending on the reaction by the opposition, would go a long way in determining whether when the results come out, they are accepted and Namibians move on, or there's some sort of a protest. And also to be interested to see what will be the reaction of the SADC leaders. Back in the years, there used to be what they used to call SADC leaders as a club of friends, because you'd see that there were some irregularities in some countries, but the head of states would actually go ahead and endorse or attend the inauguration of whoever who had won in that particular country. So it will be interesting to see the outcome in Namibia and the reaction also from the counterparts, be it Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, and South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, just to come in, if I can point something else. Victor, you pointed out something that I also noted in Namibia, where something that has been working pro-SWAPO, that the opposition has been complaining about, the election funding. Because most likely, it's always the businesses, the bigger guys who always endorse these ruling parties, sort of in a secret way. So if the law is to say that everyone has to declare the funding, I'm very sure the amount that has been going there will decrease very much, because most people will shun from being associated with the ruling party.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you so much.
Election Overview 2024, empowering you to make informed decisions.